Okay, so let's provide some concluding remarks to today's discussion. And that is that the apportionment determination seems to be a choke point for many doctors, but it really should not be and doesn't need to be. Because you're only going to encounter a limited number of scenarios with your examinees. There's a finite number of scenarios that you're going to be encountering. And once you master the general principles of those basic scenarios, you'll have the apportionment determination whipped from that point on forward. Another of the major tenets that we described in our other video related to the QME regulations is that Labor Code 4664 also gives us great guidance in providing our apportionment determination. Labor Code 4664 says that if an applicant has received a prior award of permanent disability, that prior disability is presumed to exist at the time of any subsequent industrial injury. This is a major principle, and this applies to those examinees, the growing number of examinees that we're seeing that have prior industrial injuries and prior awards for permanent impairment. So the principle is, on the date of the second industrial injury, they already had a bad neck. They already had a bad shoulder. They already had a permanently impaired lumbar spine. They already had a permanently impaired lower extremity. The permanent disability exists at the time of any subsequent industrial injury. So when you provide your permanent impairment rating, the examinee qualifies only for permanent impairment that's above and beyond that which was already existing at the time. And so this tremendously simplifies the apportionment determination. It used to be that prior award for permanent disability, that prior permanent impairment percentage, could go away if the examinee had to demonstrate that if the examinee could demonstrate that they had rehabilitated themselves. Now, that prior disability does not go away. So if you have an examinee who, let's just say, has a 20% impairment for a spinal injury, and you find documentation that they had a prior award of 15% permanent impairment, you can safely say that 75% of the permanent impairment, that's 15% out of 20% total, that's 75%. 75% of the permanent impairment is due to other factors. Only 25% is due to the new industrial injury. A very simple apportionment determination. The other key principle comes from the Escobedo decision, and it has to do with the mechanism of injury. So become an expert in discovering as many facts as possible related to the mechanism of injury, because it's the mechanism of injury upon which you're going to rely later for your opinion and conclusion on the apportionment of the permanent impairment. Many doctors are omitting or forgetting to discover details about the mechanism of injury, and then when it comes time to provide the apportionment determination, they don't have the necessary facts upon which they can rely. And the mechanism of injury is one of the key facts upon which you do rely. And so when you get to the apportionment determination, you're going to reiterate in great detail the mechanism of injury. And the more severe the mechanism of injury, the more likely it is that the entirety of the permanent impairment is due to the industrial injury. On the other hand, the more trivial the injury, the more likely it is that the entirety of the permanent impairment is going to be due to other factors. And if you think about it, doesn't that make sense? If a person says that all they did was overuse their right lower extremity for a couple of weeks, but yet they have high level of permanent impairment on that lower extremity, the greater proportion of that impairment is due to other factors. It's not due to the injury, which was a trivial injury. And then on the other hand, the more severe the injury, the more likely it is that that type of an injury would cause the same or similar impairment in any other person, regardless of other factors, regardless of pre-existing degenerative change, regardless of retroactive prophylactic work restrictions, regardless of subsequent traumas. When you get stomped by a 2,000-pound rodeo bull, I don't care if you're Mr. America, you're going to suffer the same or similar injury as Mr. Sears and Roebuck in his mid-30s, Mr. Executive in his 40s, Mr. Farmer in his 50s. This permanent impairment is going to be roughly the same across all age spectrums, across all spinal condition spectrums, across all historic spectrums. That's a severe mechanism of injury that's going to cause same similar impairment regardless of other factors. So the bottom line and the take-home message on the apportionment determination really is that it all comes down to the mechanism of injury. Isn't that fascinating? And isn't that reassuringly simple? Doesn't that simplify your apportionment determination? You simply place the mechanism of injury along a spectrum from trivial to moderate to severe, and that taken together with other historic facts is going to allow you to very easily pinpoint the approximate percentages due to the injury and the approximate percentages due to other factors. So doctors, I hope this concept helps you. This is something that you can rely on for every single case from here on out. And you have every justification to hold your head high and to be proud and confident in your apportionment determination when it's solidly based upon an adequate history as relates to the mechanism of injury and an adequate exam that exactly complies with the requirements as described in the AMA guides. And when you elaborate in great detail on the mechanism of injury and support your opinion and conclusions with details from the mechanism of injury, your apportionment determination will largely be, number one, it will qualify as substantial medical evidence, and number two, it will basically be irrefutable. Although don't be surprised if the parties do try to refute your opinion, because as we said, that's their obligation. So doctors, I hope this helps you. So doctors, this is Dr. Perry Carpenter. It's been my pleasure to be with you here on today's video. I look forward to being with you again on next week's video. And for now, I'm wishing you best of success in your career as a qualified medical evaluator.